Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another edition of the Takedown Podcast. My name is Mike Larkin, and joining me as always by my side is my boy, my dude, my homie, the one, the only RC, Mr. Roy Costin. Roy, it has been a hell of a weekend in the world of professional wrestling. There's a lot to analyze, dissect, and decipher, and we do have predictions for AEW Redemption for their first time ever. Are you ready to feel redeemed? Are you ready? Are we feeling redeemed here, Roy?
I think the most excited thing I'm looking forward to on that is they're honoring the Rougeaus, I believe is what it
Yes,
was.
Jacques and Raymond Rougeau.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. I do like that, and I like the color scheme. So, you know,
Yeah. I cannot wait till we get into predictions, folks, because we're always blunt and honest with this. But I will say bluntly and honestly, the show that they are putting on right now for that, and we'll get to it later on in the show, is very much a stopgap for where we're going towards All In. What we're going to analyze, dissect, and decipher first is what some would say was a stopgap for WWE. New York, New York. I'm talking about the Knicks. Let's go, baby. Jalen Brunson and everything that has to do with New York City, the MVP, the King of New York. I figured we dive into Saturday night's main event because there were a lot of matches and there was the angle. And while I did mention the New York Knicks, let's definitely start there. Roman Reigns comes out with Jalen Brunson, putting him over, acknowledging him. They're doing the deal. Then Seth Rollins comes out with Tyrese Halliburton, of course, Indiana Pacers, those damn Indiana Pacers. And don't get me started on that. I go back to the days of Reggie Miller when he was on there screwing us Knicks from the days of Patrick Ewing, Latrell Sprewell, friggin' Marcus Camby, Allen Houston. Oh, we'll be here all day, but that's another podcast for another time. So Seth Rollins comes out, hits Roman Reigns with the chair, going for the curb stomp again. And then Jalen Brunson's like, nah, to quote LA Knight. And Roman Reigns hit the Superman punch and a spear. And then Seth Rollins takes off with Tyrese Halliburton, and Roman and Jalen Brunson acknowledge one another as the show goes off the air. I figured we start with that since that wasn't necessarily a match, but it definitely was a highlight and a moment for ESPN and for New York City and the Garden in itself. What were your thoughts on the Roman Jalen Brunson segment and Seth Rollins and Tyrese Halliburton getting involved?
so I'm not a big basketball guy. So I'm not familiar with most of these people. But that's not to say that I didn't like it. I understand the impact that these guys have, especially in that area and everything like that. Just because I'm not a basketball guy doesn't mean that this isn't for people. I'm not one of those people where it's like, oh, I'm so tired of them bringing in rappers on WWE just because I don't listen to rap. Like that's stupid. Just because I don't listen to rap doesn't mean that 95% of America listens to rap. So I may not like basketball. I may not be a basketball guy, but I also know that a lot of wrestling fans, especially in the New York area, are basketball fans. So this was more catered to them. Um, Putting that aside, though, having Roman come out there with, you know, a hometown hero, and then having Seth come out with a guy who can be seen as the foil to that hero, it's an interesting dynamic, especially considering that, Roman is back in his heel era. So I think the dynamics were a little bit interesting. Just because you had Roman, who I see as a heel, with a guy who is basically a face in that area, and then being interrupted by Seth, who I feel is the face in this situation, coming out with a guy who is arguably a heel to the New York area. So the dynamics were a little bit interesting to me, but if you're going to have integration, at least do it like this. Don't have it where it's a tag team match. Don't have it where there's, constant involvement. Just have them come out there, have a little fun. I think we've said before the Saturday night main events are basically just uh, glorified house shows, anyways, and they always have fun on the house shows. So doing something like this, it's cool. They had fun. The New York crowd ate it up, and that's all that really matters is satisfying, your crowd and your audience. So I think it was fun. It was cool.
I think when you really look at it, a lot of people were comparing it to when Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman were in WCW. I look at it like this: Karl Malone, Utah Jazz, and Dennis Rodman with the Bulls and everything that they did at the time made for a hell of a match and a moment for WCW. The Tonight Show with Jay Leno will be here all day. The press conference, stuff like that gets over. And I mean, cross promoting the NBA within WWE, it works perfectly. And I mean, you also got to see a lot of really cool things that weekend. One thing I have to mention, so since this is the topic of celebrity involvement, so to speak, Tom Brady doing the old slapperoonie to Logan Paul. Do you want to see Tom Brady in the ring? To be completely honest with you, it is what it is. We've seen others, but Tom Brady at 48.
I think that might be the biggest issue I have with it is how old Tom Brady is.
Yes.
Sure, he is a big name and everything like that. What you could do is kind of go back to the days of special ringside enforcer, or even do like a special guest referee spot with Tom Brady. If you're going to do current stars or somebody that just retired or whatever, I think of people kind of like Jason Kelsey.
Yes.
Jason Kelsey, he has the build of a wrestler, most linemen do. And he's still kind of young. And I wouldn't mind seeing somebody like him in the ring. But I think with Tom Brady, his age is what I'm kind of getting hung up on, just because it's not unprecedented for a athlete, and especially a celebrity athlete, to come in and run a match in WWE, WCW, NWA, whatever the case is, even AEW. I think one of the first big pay-per-views, or no, not even that, it was just a regular Dynamite. They had in Jade Cargill's first ever match, it was her and Shaq against Cody and Red Velvet.
Yep.
So I mean, I'm used to seeing celebrities and athletes come in and doing matches, but like I said, I think the biggest hang up for me is Tom Brady's age. If they want to do like a special guest referee or something, I'd be down with that. Maybe he starts to befriend some of the people on the roster, where they can do like a tag match where it's the Vision whenever Logan Paul gets better. So it's Logan Paul and Theory against somebody that may have befriended Tom Brady over the next few months, to where they run that as a tag match. That'd be cool.
It kind of reminds me with what you're saying there. Looking back at SummerSlam 2015, when you had Stardust and King Barrett against Neville and Stephen Amell, the first time we really saw Stephen Amell in the ring. Like, I would love that. Tag matches are definitely a necessity there, and I think it will work in Tom Brady's favor. I mean, long are the days from when we had in TNA, since you didn't mention one of theirs. Like, I remember old-ass Danny Bonaducci and Eric Young in the Six Sides of Steel at TNA Lockdown 09. Now, that match was a cluster within itself, but Danny Bonaducci also at the time was going through his demons. So, I mean, hey, they were in the local area where he did his radio show, so it made sense. But good God almighty, I never want to see Danny Bonaducci and his nunchucks ever again in a wrestling ring. I'll put it to you like that. But the other thing I will mention, even to go on to your point, one of the other things that really stood out to me, we said it was an easy layup, and they did it. Fatal Influence are your new women's tag team champions, beating Paige and Brie Bella. JC Jane doing the over reverse right into the pin for Lainey Reed there. New women's tag team champions. Found Henley got a little busted at the end there. So your thoughts on this, because I thought it was the right call. They have so much momentum going to what they're doing on the main roster. It kind of reminds you with these three. Remember when the Riot Squad came up in 2018? You had Sarah Logan, Liv Morgan, and Ruby Riot, but then afterwards it kind of fell by the wayside. I think these three have the potential to do a lot of great things. JC Jane has improved and evolved immensely over the years. Fallon Henley is another one that really has stuck to her character, which she can play both babyface and heel wise. And Lainey Reed is just felt in here like a glove just for the fact that she's relatively new. She's got sass. She works her butt off, and she has a great overall, dare I say, regimen of where she wants to go and who she wants to be. So, with that being said, your thoughts on Fatal Influence winning the Women's Tag Team Championships?
It was the right call at the right time. They pulled the trigger at the right moment. I think that this could be where maybe Paige and Brie get a rematch. They lose the rematch, and we could maybe see Paige turn heel a little bit. I know that's kind of played out. We've done that so many times, especially recently with Lyra.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it would be good, especially because Paige is such a good heel, and you can have her turn heel. You have whoever wins the ladder match, because we did get it confirmed that there's going to be a ladder match for the women's title at SummerSlam. So you have whoever wins the ladder match be a babyface. Maybe you can have Paige go after whoever wins the women's title after SummerSlam. That way we can kind of keep this momentum of the women's matches mattering. And just because you lose the title, especially with like the tag team titles, then you can still be put into other matches and not just fall by the wayside. As far as Fatal Influence, I think there is so much potential they can do with them. You mentioned the Riot Squad, and I think what ended up messing up the Riot Squad, they had a few injuries along the way, and creative just kind of couldn't figure out what they wanted to do with them. And where everybody saw Ruby Riot and Sarah Logan as the standouts, I think WWE was like, no, Liv Morgan is the standout of this, so we're going to focus on Liv Morgan. And because they did that, we kind of lost this aura for Ruby and for Sarah over time, and we kind of got Liv shoved down our throats to the point of now she is a fixture in WWE, whether you like it or not. I'm hoping they don't do the same thing with the Fatal Influence, where they're like, oh yeah, you know, Lainey Reed's good, and you got JC Jane's really good, but Fallon Henley, she's the standout, so we need to focus on her. I hope they kind of keep them as a cohesive unit, because we don't get that often with women wrestlers, because there's always, they start out as a group and then within a few months they've already separated. You know, you don't get them to stay together as a cohesive unit for a long time. So I'm hoping they at least do that with them, because there is potential. I'd like to see all three of them with gold at some point. So now we just need to put some gold on JC Jane. But other than that, my question to you would be, are they able to freebird the women's tag titles?
Hey, I mean, they did it with Late Cool when they broke the Divas Championship back in the day with Beth Phoenix and that whole thing, which was comedy gold. I mean, I think they could, just because of the fact we've seen it with New Day.
Mm-hmm.
We even saw it back in the day with the Spirit Squad. It's one of those things where I look at it like this, Roy. Like you mentioned with like Liv Morgan and the Riot Squad, like that was around the time too when Ruby Riot turned on her and then they put them back together again because it wasn't going anywhere. And I think with this stable as well, this overall faction, this trio, if you will, they definitely have a chance of just being absolutely amazing with what they're doing. So yes, I would love to see a Freebird rule. I mean, we've seen it now even with Dark State, for an example, what they did in NXT. So I mean, honestly, why not? I think we definitely need a free bird rule there. I mean, for God's sake, I mentioned the Spirit Squad earlier. Mitch, for God's sakes, Mitch was the WWE Raw World Tag Team Champion. The same Mitch that cut an infamous promo where pretty much said, "Hi, I'm Mitch from the Spirit Squad and I suck." That legit happened. That legit happened. And that's supposed to get him over as a star in the Spirit Squad. But that's the thing, man. They could definitely do a Freebird rule with anything. And I definitely see them doing a Freebird rule with Fatal Influence going into their tag team championship run. And speaking of running, this girl is running on all cylinders. Lyra Valkyria, who looks like a cross between something that came out of The Grudge and the little girl coming out of the TV in the ring, rest in peace, because that was also the girl who was the voice of Lilo and Lilo and Stitch. Mm-hmm. It really has that great comedic character as well as like crazy character to it, because it's funny when she just like snap back like, I'm not crazy. But you have her acting like Tatum Paxley mixed with Daphne, mixed with any goth girl that you've seen at the mall, where she constantly is at Hot Topic, and then she's constantly just like by herself with her fingernails painted, and maybe have some Punk Goes Pop into her headphones, depending on your music type of choice. But this type of girl right here, Miss Lyra Valkyria, another great layer to her character. I mean, we see what she can do as far as edginess during her NXT UK run. So I'm digging this. She beats Bayley, Nightwing on the steps. I thoroughly enjoyed this because it gets her over even more. But god dang it, these two have great chemistry. And I'm looking forward to this heel run of Lyra Valkyria. What do you think, man?
Yeah, I absolutely am too. I think I told you the other day that she reminds me a lot of Marla from Fight Club. Yes. Where she's just a little bit unhinged. She understands the workings of the world, but it's hard for us to comprehend how she understands it. And then just, hey, where'd you get that shirt from? I pulled it off a dead body. It's like, oh, okay, what? Oh, whatever. She reminds me about a bit about that, but I also like that she has changed her moveset a little bit because she won with the bulldog choke.
Yep.
So that was, I like when a wrestler, when they change up their style visually, they also change up their style in the ring a little bit. And you can still do some of the moves that you could before and everything. And I know there are people that say, oh, just because you turn heel doesn't mean you have to change the way that you wrestle. But I do like the fact that before, she may not have been aggressive enough to be like, oh, I can't choke somebody out. That's just not me. Whereas now it's, yeah, I don't mind choking somebody out. It is what it is. If that's what I got to do, then that's what I got to do. I do like the progression that we've had with Lyra. I hate that she doesn't still have her wings, because that is one of the things she used to do in the UK. Yep. Is she would come out there and pluck one feather and leave it for her next opponent, and that was a really neat idea. But I'm still of the thought of, it might be Tatum that comes in and actually settles her down, where, she had to do the same thing with Tatum a little bit ago in NXT. Tatum needed somebody to come out there and help her with the culling, and, Lyra was there to help her. So maybe we get that on the flip side of, instead of Lyra needing help against a faction, it's Lyra needing help against herself, and Tatum's there to say, hey, look, we're all a little bit crazy, but me and you can keep each other in check, or something like that. I think that'd be fun.
I think so too. And I mean, Tatum Paxley adds a great layer to the story, like we mentioned, but Bayley, everybody's talking about it because her contract's up at the end of the month. Do you see this girl going to AEW back to Davina Rose?
Do you mean Davina Rose?
Yeah, Davina.
Is that who you're talking about? You're talking about Davina Rose. You're not talking about Bayley.
Of course, that's who I'm talking about, Roy.
I think there is a possibility, and I said it last week, I think, but there is a possibility that we do see Bayley go to AEW, maybe not signing the 5-year contract like everybody does, maybe signing like a 1 year with an additional or something. I could see her doing it just to say that she did it. Just to say, okay, I gave it a shot. I didn't like it. I'm back. I did like it. I extended my offer. You know, hey, I don't like wrestling anymore, period. So I'm just out of it. Whatever the case is. I think that if she does go to AEW, I think reports are saying it may be October. Nobody has a, which is funny. Nobody supposedly has a definitive when her contract is up, but we think it's sometime in October. Uh, I'm not going to say which dirt sheet person it was, but they said they had been sitting on a story about Bayley for months, but now all of a sudden they're going to drop it behind a paywall. Um, so it is interesting that we have all this buzz about will she, won't she. I would like to see her stay in WWE and continue to help this upcoming group of women, because you have so many. You also have the possibility of Lola Vice coming up soon, Jada Parker coming up soon, Kalani Jordan might be coming up soon. We have all these people, plus there might be a return for AJ Lee again. She might come back into the fold. I know at the Fanatic Fest, they had Nikki and Bree's podcast had AJ Lee, Paige, and Bayley on there, and they were talking about, what are the odds of ever having the four horsewomen versus the Bellas, Paige, and AJ. And Bayley kind of said, never say never, because, you can't do it without Mercedes, because, she is a four horsewoman. But also they said, well, we could get somebody to kind of take Mercedes' spot. And Bayley's like, no, 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 no. If we're going to do it, we're going to do it, the four of us against the four of y'all. So I think I would almost be more interested to see how much more time Mercedes has left on her contract with AEW, as opposed to how much more time Bayley has left in WWE.
I like that too. And I mean, different management now within WWE with Triple H and everything. I know they offered her a deal and she wanted too much and she said, no, I'm going to go to AEW. So it's one of those things too, where I look at it from a stance like this, man. Whatever she does, I know she's going to rock it. Unlike you have the Sarah Matos of the world helping training and coaching these girls. Bayley is such a leader, besides in the locker room, but in general. It definitely makes for something that's going to be really awesome to see where her next tenure takes her. And the other thing that I will mention when it does come to what we got to see, the other thing that I will mention is CM Punk and Cody Rhodes took on Sami Zayn and Gunther. Very predictable, but also we got something that Roy wants to talk about because he's a little perturbed, if you will, a little peeved, if you will, Mr. Roy Costin. So Aldis comes in at the end, hits Gunther with the belt, and Cody and Punk win, and then Cody and Punk are now going to face each other at SummerSlam for the WWE Championship. So we get to the press conference, and Gunther and Nick Aldis are out there. Gunther's all mad, and here comes Aldis, and then they brawl. Triple H makes it official, Gunther versus Nick Aldis at SummerSlam, no fatal four-way. What were your thoughts on kind of what we already knew, that Nick Aldis was going to get involved, and now we have Gunther and Nick Aldis at SummerSlam?
Yeah, we kind of knew he was going to get involved. I was very excited on Friday when they said, oh, yeah, if Gunther and Sammy win, then that means it'll become a fatal four-way. Because I'm like, okay, you can definitely do that. You can have, Gunther power bomb, and then have the haluva kick from Sammy, and you have one of them pin Cody because he's not the champion right now. Have it be a little bit of a weird finish where they still win, and it becomes the fatal 4-way, and then maybe that's when Aldis comes back and messes up Gunther's chance of winning the title. That's what I was thinking the whole time. And then as soon as Aldis showed up, I'm like, man, I really, really wanted that 4-way.
The same.
Now, that being said, I don't mind Aldis versus Gunther. I think it's going to be a fun match. It'll be really cool to see Aldis back in the ring after, has it been 3 or 4 years?
It's probably going to be like, as of right now, probably like 3 or 4. I remember it was during COVID that he wrestled with NWA, so probably like 5 years.
Yeah, something along that lines. I will say, I think a really cool fact to this match is AJ Styles' last match with WWE was against Gunther.
Yes.
And his last official match with TNA was against Magnus.
Oh, Dixieland and Dixie-Carter?
So technically, the two people that pushed AJ Styles out of, prominent promotions are now facing off against each other at SummerSlam. Aldis has only been wrestling 1 year longer than Gunther. Aldis is coming in just a year older than when AJ came into WWE. So if the Gunther match kicks off an Aldis in-ring career in WWE, we could still see like a good 10 years of Nick Aldis wrestling for WWE. I hope that's the case, but I am kind of getting tired of Gunther only facing wrestlers who are about to retire or people who are not wrestlers right now. Because we had him going against Pat McAfee, we've had him go against Goldberg, we've had him put, Cena out the pasture, AJ Styles out the pasture. Now we've got him going against a general manager. So I am kind of getting tired of seeing the trope of, oh, Gunther only faces people who are on their way out or who have no business, quote unquote, wrestling. So hopefully this does lead into maybe Nick Aldis having an in-ring career with WWE, and we see more from that. And hopefully it will lead into Gunther going back and trying to win a title down the road. So we'll see.
I think a lot of people forget how good Nick Aldis is in the ring. One of the most dominant NWA champions, him and Cody from All In. The TNA run with the British Invasion, him and Doug Williams and Rob Terry, the Freak, in his corner. And you also got to see, like Roy mentioned here, the days of Dixieland, honey. And when he was with Dixie Carter and Rockstar Spud and all that good stuff when he was the TNA champion. The matches with Sting, being a part of the Main Event Mafia for a hot minute. A lot of people forget how good Nick Aldis really is. Like we mentioned, Brutus Magnus, when he used to come out in the Gladiator thing in his debut. Oh, God, take me back. But this is a guy right here who's so polished. And if he comes back into ring, it's like he's not going to miss a step because he's in such great shape. And for his age, where he is now, late 30s, give him one final one. Let him wrestle, do the damn thing. Give us some of those great matches that he's had, and we get to see it. Gunther is another one who's just awesome to see. But I'm kind of with you. It's like, who are we going to have next? Him and Wade Barrett? You know what I'm saying? What's that next? Is that where we're leading to? But no. He's going against a lot of guys with the career killer mantra of former wrestlers, Pat McAfee, who was an announcer, AJ Styles retiring, Cena, Goldberg. I mean, he's living up to the gimmick, but it's like, what else can we do and what more? And speaking of more, we got more, and more of this individual this week on TV. So Danhausen took on JD McDonough in a no disqualification match at Saturday night's main event. I thought this was fun. We got the minis involved, the cloning machine. He puts in the cat, the stuffed animal cat, and the Knicks jersey, and out comes Cat. Carl Anthony Towns comes out, and he chokeslams Dominic through the table. And then a triple D, DDD, the Danhausen death chop, an homage to Sting for the 1, 2, 3. Mm-hmm. And Danhausen celebrates with Carl Anthony Towns and the minis. For this, I thought it was fun. I thought it was really entertaining. What did you think of Danhausen and JD McDonough?
So for a split second, and I thought I was wondering how it would even make sense, but I thought that when he put the cat in there, it was going to be Ernest the Cat Miller.
Somebody call my mama.
I was like, it doesn't make any sense, but that'd be great.
Yep.
Like I said, I'm not a basketball guy, so I had no idea what the whole cat thing was and everything like that. But then they explained it, and it made more sense. He had a great choke slam.
Oh my
Like,
God.
holy crap. The choke slam that, and I'll give JD McDonough his props on this one. JD McDonough took that choke slam and made it look spectacular. Um, it was a fun match. It was what it needed to be. It's Danhausen. He's going to go out there. You're going to have fun watching him. I really, really wish that they could get the license to tequila because that would add to the character. When he was on the Indies, he would do the Pee Wee Herman tequila dance during his matches. That would be fun, and it would be something to get everybody involved in with the crowd. You know, they do the whole dun 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 dun, dun and then it gets to the dun 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 dun. You could have the whole crowd tequila, like that'd be cool. Yeah, it was a fun match. It has now led to Danhausen making his debut, or his SummerSlam debut at SummerSlam this year. Which, by the way, I believe right now there are 4 wrestlers on the card making their SummerSlam debuts this year. It's Danhausen, Nick Aldis, Royce Keys, and Obafemi.
Yep.
They're all. This is the first time they're on the SummerSlam card, which is awesome. Like, good for them. That is a huge accomplishment. Yeah, it was fun. It wasn't the debut of Mike Santana like I was hoping, but it is what it is. Like I said, I'm not a basketball guy, but Carl, what was it? Carl Anthony Town?
Yep, that spells
Right?
cat. K-A-T.
Yeah. He came in there, he did some awesome choke slams. The minis were really fun to watch. On a behind the scenes note, I am so glad that they kept the minis around because those guys are getting paid. Like, they're getting some spotlight. That's awesome. Good for them, man.
Absolutely. They add to the attraction and the appeal of Danhausen and what we've gotten. Him and Dominic, I think, is going to be fun. The AAA Mega Champion against Danhausen. I will say this about this. I think it's going to be really cool to see the dynamic they have. I think it's actually going to be a very underrated sleeper match of the night because Danhausen can wrestle. Dominic is awesome. And I think if you have the comedy and entertainment value in there, I think you're going to have a hell of a match. But I think this will be the end finally. The Danhausen and Dom in that feud as Dominic goes on to face El Grande Americano at Triple Mania, which is going to be dope to see. But I like the fact that we're also going to get Dom out of this, and they add a great chemistry with one another, both inside the ring and outside of the ring. I mean, Danhausen came out on a tank this week with Io Sky, and the one thing that we definitely have to talk about here is with Raw. We mentioned the women, like we saw Lyra Valkyria and Sol Ruka do like a thing during the break, and it seems like we're leading towards Lyra going back for that Women's Intercontinental Championship. Roy, besides Liv Morgan and Maxine Dupree, like there wasn't any women's matches this week on Raw.
Yeah, man. It's always one step forward, 2 steps back with WWE. They talk about women's evolution. They talk about being the revolution for, the women's movement in America. And then they just kind of use, you get weeks where there's no women's matches. There's no women on the card except to be around the men. And it's like, okay, why? Like, why not have some? You have 2.5, 3 hours for Raw. You have 2 hours on SmackDown. You have plenty of time to put women on the card, especially when all you're doing half the time is running promos for nonsense and nonsensical matches. So why not spend some of that time having some sort of women's match that means something. You could have had a qualifier match where it's you get, I think I mentioned it before, we have the at SummerSlam they're going to have the ladder match to determine the new women's champion on SmackDown.
Yes.
Well, what if they said one of those spots in the ladder match is reserved for a Raw superstar? So we're going to have a match on Raw between these two women. Whoever wins this match, they're going to be put into the ladder match. It doesn't have to make sense, but it does kind of make sense where it's like, oh, it's a vacated title. You know, these two women on this brand aren't really able to go after the women's title right now, so they want a chance to go after a title. Why not put them in a match to qualify for the match for the title? But instead, no, they had EO come out there with Danhausen. It was fun. It was cool. You didn't even have Liv bring her title out.
Yeah, that was another noticeable thing I saw when she
Like,
came out with Dom.
yeah, she didn't even have her title. So what's the, like, why? And then you had the Sol Ruka thing during the Netflix break. And it's like, well, you could have had Lyra talking about how this all started when she had the Intercontinental title and then she lost it and she tried to befriend Bayley and Bayley done this, and to make herself feel whole again, then she has to go after Sol Ruka to get the title back to try to make her have some sanity again. But instead, you just don't. And it didn't make any sense to me. There was nothing on Raw. Like, pretty much anything that happened on Raw, you could have substituted out for a women's match, because nothing was really that important on Raw to where it's like, oh, we can't do that this week. Like, we have to do this week, or else we could never do it again. You know, why not substitute something out for a women's match? It just didn't make any sense. This isn't AEW. AEW, they have a thing, and it has been a running thing for a long time, where there's one women's match or one women's segment per episode, and that's it. This isn't AEW. You know, you have had a pay-per-view twice now called Evolution, where you boast about being on top of the women's division in sports entertainment. You boast every week how NXT is the place for women's wrestling, which it is. You know, I hate lumping NXT in with the main roster, because NXT, they split their time pretty much evenly. Sometimes they actually give more shine to the women on their weekly product, because they do have some of the best women's wrestlers on American television right now. And it's just insane to me that you have all this talent and you're just filling up with promos and matches that don't matter and just throwaway segments, when you could be having matches. You could be having a women's match to determine who's going to face Sol Ruka. You could have a women's match to say, hey, they just crowned new tag team champions on Saturday. Maybe Raw wants to bring the titles in to them, so we need some women to go after the tag titles from Raw. You know, there are so many opportunities to have women's matches, and they're just not taking them, and it makes no sense to me.
I think the thing too as well, like you mentioned, Tiffany Stratton and Jade Cargill have already qualified for the women's ladder match. They could have added more to it, but I think they're going to wait till SmackDown this Friday. But still, like there is no excuse to not have any women on this show when they're featured prominently. You have women's tag titles, you have an Intercontinental title, you have a U.S. title. So it's like, what are we doing in this front? But also, you said something so perfectly, and this is where I'm going to segue with this. I'm watching NXT this week, and we talk about prominence and showcase of women. This Lola Vice Kendall Gray stare down was amazing. Just it sets up the Lucha Underground. I almost said the NXT Underground for the NXT Women's Championship, which first time ever that the title's on the line in that match. And the NXT Underground is Lola Vice's specialty. And Kendall Gray is just like, I'm going to whoop your ass and then you're going to go back to shaking it, which I thought was a great tie-in to what she used to do and celebrate after her MMA fights, which I thought was great because it's the MMA fighter against the collegiate wrestler and the amateur wrestler. So they tied in back to that. And it makes me invested even more with Kendall Gray and Lola Vice because they have great chemistry. And also it adds some edge and badassery to Kendall Gray that we knew was there, but we're letting her showcase it even more now and not being afraid of Lola Vice. And Lola Vice is going to Lola Vice. You know what I'm saying? And I mean that in the most sincerest and loving and respectful way. So what did you think of this face-off? I thought it was great. I thought it was awesome hype to what we set up with the NXT Underground with Kendall Gray and Lola Vice for the NXT Women's Championship.
Yeah, you said it perfectly. It was such a great setup, and it was such a great thing of just, hey, I know that you are great in the underground matches. I'm not a pushover. So why not have this match in your specialty just to show that I'm not scared of you. It's a great idea to do something like that, and it does tie into what I was just talking about. NXT, they don't, as much crap as people get about saying it, they don't see gender, they don't see color, they just see, hey, these are all great wrestlers, we're going to give them all time. NXT is really good about that, where it doesn't matter if you're new on the card, it doesn't matter if you've been there for a while, it doesn't matter if you're a guy, if you're a girl, if you're black, white, red, whatever the case is, you're going to get time. Whether it is in a backstage segment, whether it's in an in-ring segment, whether it's in a vignette, or if it's a match or something, everybody gets time when it comes to NXT. The stories almost flow together, and it works out so perfectly because, like you said, we had Kendall Gray and Lola Vice in there, but there was somebody else that was also in the ring. We had Ren Sinclair. Ren Sinclair was in there. Well, Ren Sinclair is the Speed champion right now. So then you can take the focus from, hey, this is the women's champion, this is the women's opponent, or the women's champion's opponent. Then you have another champion standing behind her. Okay, well, then the next segment could be who's facing off against Ren Sinclair. There's so much greatness when it comes to the ebbs and flows of the way NXT runs. And as far as the underground match is going to be fun. That is going to be really, really good. I think you have to have Kendall Gray win, just because, everybody knows, hey, this is Lola Vice's thing, blah, blah, blah. There should be some sort of mutual respect afterwards where Kendall Gray does win and Lola Vice, instead of, shaking it and everything like that, it's just like, okay, no, you're right. You've got a lot of moxie or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, you're good. You are good. And thank you for this match. And that should be it for Lola Vice. Have her main roster bound,
Triple A.
her still do AAA stuff. But this should be the swan song for Lola Vice. And I can't think of a more fitting way for her to leave NXT than to lose in an underground match. I think that would be perfect.
I think the setup is there, much like you mentioned. This has to be where she loses and then shakes her hands afterward and kind of passes the torch. I think that definitely is something that is well needed, and that is perfect storytelling at its finest. You made a great point about the women. Like Thea Hale was backstage, just kind of down on herself. And then when we get to Natty and Jada Parker, which was a great match, and then Jada's got her in the sharpshooter, and Nikita's thinking about throwing in the towel, and her and Carmen are going back and forth. And then Thea's like, you know what? Boom. Throws the towel in the ring, and Jada Parker wins. What I like with the advancement of that is I kind of want to see Natty and Thea Hale now, because Natty working with these younger girls really adds a lot. And if Thea beats Natalya, it doesn't hurt her in the slightest, much like Lola Vice losing to Kendall Gray doesn't hurt her in the slightest. So there's progression there. And I got to give a shout out to our girl, one of our favorite rising stars in NXT, Reina Falcon. Her and Skylar Renee, my God, that woman is a beast. She hit her with elbows, and that torture rack is sweet, the natural disaster, as it's called. I got to tell you, the advancement of what they're doing with Thea Hale, making her not be lost in the shuffle and giving something to do with the Natalya stuff, and what we got going on with Reina Falcon beating Skylar Renee, which I think the NXT Heat Wave match should be her and Tatum Paxley, and that I think is going to be a very underrated match. What were your thoughts on the setups with Thea, Jada, and Natty, as well as the debut of Reina Falcon?
So I like the fact that they are finding something for Thea, and the fact that it's almost like a lost puppy gimmick. It's, I came in with Chase U. Chase U's no longer here. I broke away from Chase U for a while, but realized that I needed them. And then when I came back to needing them, they're gone. All of my friends are in different factions now. I don't have a place. And instead of joining Natty and her crew, she's taken it upon herself to be like, no, I can stand on my own. I can be my own woman. I don't need to be in Chase U. I don't need to be a part of the culling or be a part of the Dungeon Babes or whatever they call them. What do they call them? I can't. I can't remember.
Oh God, it's something. It has to do with like just the fact. Just call her the Natty's Dungeon Crew is what I'm calling them.
Yeah, that might have been. I can't remember. Every time I think of Nikita Lyons, she always has something to do with like babes or something.
First of all, don't be hating on my girl. Don't be hating on my girl, Nikita Lyons. You ain't gonna do it. Listen, I go back to the days of when she was Faith the Lioness and WoW, and she was coming out with her own theme song called "We Flex," in which she sang.
Oh,
look,
yeah.
Don't be hating. Don't be hating on Nikita Lyons. Now, that is your Evolve Women's Champion, Roy. Don't be hating on Nikita Lyons.
She is. She is the Evolve Women's Champion. Yes, she is. That is a factual statement. You are correct.
Don't be hating. Hey, Roy. Hater.
So the fact that she did come in, she threw the towel in, and it's not like she's saying, "Oh, I want to face off against Carmen," or "Oh, I want to face off against Nikita." She looked Natty in the face and laughed at her like, "No, I'm coming after you. You're the head of this Hydra. I'm coming after you." I think it was great. As far as Reina Falcon, like, man, sign me up, dude.
Yep.
Sign me up. Fan club, newsletter, whatever it is, sign me up, man. She's awesome. She is only going to rise over time. And I'm hoping, and this kind of goes back to main roster, I hope that she doesn't get to main roster and get Jordan Grace.
Oh, that is a very great comparison. That is a great
yes. Because Jordan Grace is amazing. I love Jordan Grace. She's so great. She did great in NXT. She did great in TNA. They put her on the main roster, and then now she's kind of vanished. I hate that for her. I'm assuming it is because you can't put all your eggs in one basket. You gotta let everything play out. I'm assuming that's what the case is, where Triple H just takes so long to tell his stories, where it's like, oh yeah, we'll start this story, and then 2 years from now we'll finally finish this story, but every single episode will have something about this story. No, if you're going to have a long-term story, let people forget it a little bit, have it on the back burner, then bring it back in. Don't every episode mention this story, have something from this story, and it takes 2 years to tell this story. Don't do that. Don't have it like that. Jordan Grace should have been one of the ones in the qualifying matches for the SummerSlam ladder match. She could be going after the US title. She could be going after the Intercontinental title. She could be doing a lot of stuff. And I don't want to see Reina Falcon end up in that same boat, because she does remind me a lot of Jordan Grace. She kind of, to me, she feels like a really strong mix of Jordan Grace and Rhea Ripley.
I can see that. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I'm hoping she sticks around NXT long enough. She wins the title, has a good title reign. Triple H sees her, and he's like, okay, we've got something for her when she gets here, rather than, hey, send her up. She looks awesome. Oh, by the way, 5 months from now, we're not going to have anything for you.
I think it reminds me of, I'm glad you made the Jordan Grace comparison. It reminds you of like when she first came into TNA in like 2018, and then that run through 2022. I definitely see that. I also look at it from a stance like this. Rhea Ripley, another great comparison from the power game and everything she does. But I will also say from the male point of view, who loves women, much like this man does. He's got a great woman with him. Work of art that they are. But Roy, I'm going to say this from the male point of view. It's the first time I'm ever going to say this show on this show, and here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to Reina Falcon, I am down with the thickness. Roy? So with that being, Roy just shaking his head. Roy, with that being said, we will move on to the next part of this. Let's go into Shawn Spears and Nico Vance. Shawn Spears doing a lie, cheat, and steal Eddie Guerrero style. I popped. I thought that was great. What do you think about Shawn Spears and Nico?
Shawn Spears is fun, man. I like that he's playing more into his cheeky gimmick rather than just the, overtly brooding, oh, the end is near, blah, blah, blah. I like the having, his entrance be the spotlight on the chair, and then he shows up, spotlight hits the chair, he's not there. That's a great way to start it. I don't know where do you go with Nico Vance? Like, honestly.
I was going to say North American title. Maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I don't know. There's over the years, NXT has had a better track record with their women than their men. Especially the guys that have been in tag teams.
Yes.
Because you do have guys like Obafemi, you have guys like Ricky Starks, Ethan Page, these guys that were known for singles matches, but you have all these people who were tag team guys. Hank and Tank, I don't know what's going to happen with them if they ever go to the main roster. Jensen and oh gosh, why can't I think?
Josh Briggs?
Yes, Briggs, thank you.
Oh.
Like them two, heck, even with them, they got Trish Stratus. They got Trish Stratus, bro.
Friggin', we haven't seen Josh Briggs in forever, and Brooks Jensen is on Evolve.
Yeah, But guess who out of their original group is doing fantastic?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Fallon Henley.
Fallon Henley.
they got Trish Stratus, man. Or I guess some people called it Bliss. Because
Yes.
Alexa Bliss was just a cheerleader with
Gunnar and Murphy.
Gunnar and Murphy. Or yeah, it was
Wesley Blake.
Yeah, Blake and Murphy.
I legit just went back to TNA, get that immortal thought out of my head. Gunnar and Murphy. Good Lord. Go ahead.
But still, like, you know, there are so many women that start out as valet for tag team, where tag team goes nowhere, but they end up being the rising star. And it's happened so much that the tag teams just don't do anything anymore.
No, it's one of those things too where you have great tag teams now like Noam Dar and Romeo Moreno that I think will do well. And you have a lot of things, but when you break up the culling, and I like Shawn Spears and Nico Vance as a team, but now you have this feud, and I think we're going to get great matches out of it. But it's like, where do these guys go from here? And we need more tag teams to go against the Vanity Project. I mean, they're putting, the North Quarter Catch Crew back together with Miles and Davion Heights, thank you. And now we got him and Cam Hendricks next week for the North American title. So I'm curious to see the direction and the arc. And speaking of direction and arc, the fog is coming. The fog is coming. The fog is coming. So Danhausen was on NXT this week, and he gave Shiloh Hill a tooth, and then he's in the office with Robert Stone, and then Shaw's just like, Stone. And I never got to unleash this side of me. And then he's like, I want this match with Tristan Angels next week. Then he's back to being his normal self and taking the KFC popcorn chicken, which that looked very good.
It looks so good.
It looks so good.
It looks so good.
Let me tell you something. You know what? I kind of agree with Robert Stone here. I would be pissed too because, like, dude, I was going to eat that. Eat that. But
yeah, that popcorn chicken looked really good. I'm not going to lie.
Just hogging it for yourself, Shiloh Hill. But with popcorn chicken aside, what were your thoughts on Shiloh Hill? The fog is coming. The Danhausen thing and Shiloh and Tristan Angels next week.
So it started with, I think it was Monday. Yeah, it was either, it was Monday, where Shiloh had posted he was going on an adventure on Twitter. Now, when Shiloh mentions he's going on an adventure on Twitter, you never know what's going to happen. I've followed him for a couple years now, and his Twitter feed, like his videos and stuff, insane. So it shows him, he's like, hey, I decided to go get a tooth to replace the tooth that Tristan broke. I got to go meet this guy at his house. His name is Dan. I don't know anything about him, but he says that, if I want to buy a tooth from him, it's going to be a lot of money. So that was how it started. And then it just shows him showing up with Danhausen and then giving Danhausen a flash drive with Bitcoin on it. Danhausen not having a clue how to get Bitcoin out of the USB drive. And then after Shiloh walks away, he's like, oh, wait, was that tooth cursed? Oh, well. You can do so, everybody. There's been people talk about how Danhausen is being overplayed, and to that I say, if you use him the proper way, it is not being overplayed or overexposure. Having Danhausen be the guy that the dark web using wrestler finds to buy a tooth from makes sense. In the world of professional wrestling, if I told you there was a guy that is known for searching the dark web for mysterious items and he needed to buy a tooth, yes, it makes sense that he runs across Danhausen to buy the tooth from. It just does. Uh, I hope that this whole, the fog is coming. It is it's kind of an old creepypasta thing. I didn't mention that last week, but it's kind of an old creepypasta thing where you talk about the fog is coming and you start to see all these horrible images and stuff like that. I won't go into all the creepypasta lore behind it and everything, but it's kind of that. So it makes sense that the fog is coming being something from Shiloh Hill just because he's that kind of character. I hope that this match with Tristan, they set it up for next week, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I'm hoping next week we kind of do see the debut of this whole other side of Shiloh Hill, at least fully, because I know we've seen glimpses of it and everything. I hope we get to see the full transformation next week to see what all this is, what all it entails. Other than that, man, I'm here for it. I really am. I'm so here for it.
Same, man. I've always been entertained much like you. I do think he's a little bit buck wild, but I got to tell you, that's what makes Shiloh Hill who he is. And speaking of people who they are, Tony D and Naraku had an insane street fight to close out this show. I personally thought it was the right decision because I don't think Naraku is long for NXT. I think he's going to get his reps in and then go to the main roster. If it were me, I'd put him on SmackDown and put him in the feud with Finn Balor and the Tongans, as well as maybe include Nakamura in there. There's a lot of stuff that they can do to have that New Japan feel to it. But I got to tell you, I really did enjoy this match, and I thought it definitely highlighted Tony D for the champion that he is and Naraku for the badass that he is. But then the real story came after the match as Mike Santana comes through the crowd, stares down Tony D, and I think that is your NXT Heatwave main event: Tony D and Mike Santana for the AEW, God Almighty, for the NXT World Heavyweight Championship. And I think it's definitely going to highlight these two gentlemen. A banger alert, if you will. So with that being said, Tony D and Mike Santana, and what were your thoughts on him and Naraku?
So the match with him and Naraku, like you said, it was great. It was balls to the wall. I don't know if this was a new thing or what, but Tony D wearing the vest, like the bulletproof vest, I that was different. I did like the start of the match where it was just match starts, it's a no DQ match. Here's the mist.
Yep.
There you go. And Tony D did exactly the right thing, rolls out, washes his face off with the bottle of water, and then we get back into the match. I thought that was a really cool way to start the match. The finish with the table spot from the steps, that was awesome. And like you said, yeah, it looks like we've got a new challenger on the horizon for Tony D. If you weren't going to put the title on Naraku, you put the title on Mike Santana. Right out the gate, that's my opinion, is right out the gate, you put that title on Santana and you let Santana have a good run with that title. Let him be the one to beat Tony D. Let Tony D, go off to the main roster, do his thing there. Maybe have Santana have a match with Naraku to send him up to the main roster. But you have Santana kind of pick up the leader of NXT, because he proved himself so much in TNA that it's only fitting that he comes in and he is the new backbone and the new face for NXT. He's such a great talent. I'm so glad that he has found himself over the past few years, especially with his run in TNA. and I hope that it continues that way in NXT because he has been such a great asset, especially even when TNA and NXT were doing their crossover stuff and he would come in and have a couple matches or whatever. Um, he's proven himself to be such a good asset and a good leader that I think putting the title on him right after Tony D would be such a not just a good show of faith, but just a hey, look, this is our direction. This is the direction we're going with NXT.
I think his style is very knuck if you buck. And I think much like you mentioned with how he represented the TNA brand, him being the face of NXT really heightens this established brand. A lot of great matches he can have within that brand. It's the right destination, the right spot for him. And like you mentioned, from his days in LAX and TNA, from the AEW run back to TNA, and the journey and destination letting him into WWE's NXT, I'm here for it. And I think what we're going to get here is a champion that, like you mentioned, balls to the wall, knuck if you buck, but also at the same time, too, those crossover shows, he was at the highlight. He was at the forefront of what we got to see within those matches. So I'm very excited for Mike Santana as a fellow New Yorker. I know he's definitely going to bring the spice, if you will, to the NXT brand. And I honestly cannot wait to see where Mike Santana goes forward. And I'm looking forward to a very dominant and fun NXT run. And now to our final portion of the show. We have a pay-per-view on Saturday. It is AEW Redemption from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. One of the things that Roy had mentioned to me, which totally makes sense from where they are, they will be honoring the Rougeau brothers, Jacques and Raymond Rougeau. I think it's one of those things, too. When you think of Canadian wrestling and you think of that territory, the Rougeau brothers will always be one of the top teams there and what they did in the WWF and tag team wrestling. I think that's very cool that they're getting honored.
Yeah, no, if AEW doesn't have like a Hall of Fame yet, which they're still a fairly young promotion, honoring people in areas makes sense. They did the same thing kind of for Sting when they were in Greensboro for his final match. It just makes sense. And to honor the Rougeaus, that's really cool. That's really cool of them.
Well, I'll tell you something that is really cool. There are some good matches on here, and that's cool. But the problem with this show is I'm kind of like, I may have to use this a little bit for those that don't know how we got there as my little trademark here with my inhaler. But I think this show should be solid, but I don't feel the build for this, especially when we come to the main event portion. But I will start with this. For the AEW National Championship, since Andrade beat Jake Doyle on Dynamite, it is now Mark Davis and Andrade. It's going to be fine, but if I had to pick a winner in this, I think Andrade is going to win just because it's Andrade, and we could do some more stuff with that. We also got him and MJF on the back nine whenever he comes back. But just because, and this championship has meant diddly squat, even when held it, that being Ricochet, this is just kind of like whatever. And then Jungle Boy had it, but whatevs. Going Andrade over Mark Davis. Who are you picking?
I'm going with Andrade on this also because I think what they're going to end up doing is combining titles down the line. Because we have Andrade going after the whole Don Callis family right now, and there are like 4 people in the Don Callis family that have titles. So I could see Andrade going in and getting the national championship and then facing the prototype. Oh my gosh.
Proto Star, Kyle Fletcher.
Yeah, Fletcher. I could see him facing Fletcher and then having like a title for title where they either combine the titles because there are so many titles in AEW, or they just have double champion or whatever the case is. If Kevin Knight is a part of Don Callis family too, right?
Yes, sir.
So that they've got the TNT title also. So there could be a chance of doing something with that down the line. That's if Kevin Knight doesn't lose the title tonight against Darby Allin. Who knows? which I had literally just saw that a few minutes ago on Twitter. I didn't realize that he was defending his title
Me either.
again. Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, he's on the card for Redemption, right?
Yeah, he's the main event, him and Kenny Omega.
Yeah, for the championship.
Yep.
So, yeah, I've got Andrade winning this one. He's going to win the title, and then I think down the line we're going to get him and Fletcher for title.
I will just like to say I'm now going to have to start calling Kyle Fletcher the prototype. Friggin', we just turned Kyle Fletcher into a young John Cena from the OVW days. My goodness gracious.
Young John Cena looks like Randy Orton.
Yes. Well, we'll move on to him next. Kyle Fletcher and Bandito for the AEW International Championship. Okay, so Kyle Fletcher wrestled Commander, then he beat him up afterwards and tried to take his mask, and Bandito was like, "Don't you touch my brother," and Bandito's like, "I want the International Championship," and Kyle Fletcher said, "Okay," and here we are. So with that being said, Kyle Fletcher retains over Bandito. Roy, go.
Yeah. Where's Brody King in all this?
I don't know.
Because for the past 5 months, maybe longer, all I've heard from all the people that watch AEW is, oh yeah, Brody King's going to have this title. Brody King's going to have this title. Brody King's going to have that title. Where's Brody King? Because right now we've got Fletcher and Bandito. Bandito is tag partners with Brody King. Nothing. I don't get it. I don't understand. Like, good for Bandito. I'm glad that he's facing off for the title. He's the current Ring of Honor champion, right?
Yes, sir.
Like, he's got a Ring of Honor title. So good for him. If I'm not mistaken, there's like 4 matches on here where both sides have titles.
Yes. Bandito and Kyle Fletcher. Kenny Omega and Kevin Knight.
Yeah.
Cage and Cope against the Death Riders. So Claudio's the CMLL champion.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, so I mean, there's so many titles. Yeah, Bandito's losing this one. It goes back to what I was saying earlier with Andrade. Unless they end up doing at All In Brody King versus Fletcher, I wouldn't be opposed to that. Have Brody win the title at All In against Fletcher. That'd be cool. But as it stands right now, Fletcher's beaten Bandito.
So we'll move on to another title match, as it is for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. And Roy, you can do this with me if you'd like, if you can. Are you ready?
If I know.
Cope and Cage versus the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli and Pac for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. So they beat Wheeler Yuta and Daniel Garcia. And yeah, then they attacked them. Then they've been getting in their business. Jay White and David Finlay have a thing because, it goes back to Japan and the War Dogs and the Bullet Club and everything and whatnot. So there's a little something there. But with that being said, if I have to pick, I'm going to go with Cage and Cope because of the next match we'll predict afterwards, and the Young Bucks are in the rearview mirror. So Cage and Cope or Death Riders for the AEW World Tag Team Championship. Roy?
It should be the War Dogs.
It should be.
But it should be the War Dogs right now. It should be the War Dogs versus the friggin' Gun Club. Like, what are we doing here? Why are Cage and Cope still the champions? Cage and Cope are going to win. They're going to beat friggin' Claudio Castagnoli, who is arguably one of the most underrated superstars in wrestling, and Pac, who has been, I don't know what the hell is going on with him, but whatever. Yeah, they're gonna beat them, and yeah, so Cope and Cage.
Now we move on to the next match that kind of has a tie-in with this. So it's the Death Riders, Jon Moxley and Will Ospreay, versus the Young Bucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. Okay. Look, I know the Young Bucks and Cope and Cage had their backstage segment. I think we're going to get them as a part of a TLC match or whatever they're going to call it at All in London. There might be something where lines cross and miscommunication or something happens with John Moxley and Ospreay that I think they're going to lose. But also at the same time, too, if you're going to have the Young Bucks go for the tag titles, you would think that they get a big win here. But also they're pushing Ospreay to go for Kenny Omega. I'm just going to go with the Young Bucks to further what I think we're going to get the TLC match, or whatever they're going to call it, at All In for the tag titles. And when you think of the Young Bucks, they've become synonymous with tag team wrestling, especially in All Elite Wrestling, and them being the VPs. So I'm going to say somehow, some way, the Young Bucks are going to win over John Moxley and Bruvman. So who are you picking?
Death Riders. Death Riders win this one because it doesn't matter if the Young Bucks lose. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter if anybody loses in AEW. They will get a title shot regardless. So you're using logic to say, hey, if they win, then they get a title shot. It doesn't matter. It absolutely doesn't matter, because you can vacate a title, come back, and be put into a title match. You can lose a tournament and then be put into a title match before the winner of the tournament gets put into it. So the Bucks are going to lose to Ospreay and to Mox. And then, at All In, it'll be the Bucks and Cope and Cage and probably New Day in whatever the equivalent of the London TLC. What would they call that? The lifts and stools and stoops or whatever. I don't know. So it doesn't matter if they win or lose. It just doesn't matter. So the Bucks will lose this one, but still end up facing off for the tag titles. So
Okay.
You're messing up by putting logic and stuff.
First of all,
you don't put logic in AEW matches. I'm sorry.
You got to say it correctly. Come on, Cope.
Nope. I'm open to Cope.
Nope in the Cope. Okay, fair enough. All right, bro. I'm going to get you to do it one of these days. So speaking of matches like that, well, as the aforementioned, like Roy mentioned here, for the AEW TBS Championship, Hikaru Shida versus Maya World. Maya World, who had a great showing against Mercedes, loses the tournament. But now we're going for the TBS title. Okay. I mean, she was in the main event with Willow and Hyan against Mercedes Moné's new crew of the Divine Dominion. Apparently, they're a faction now. Okay. But, I think it's going to be good. I like Maya World. We know her story. We know she's worked her butt off. Personally, if it were me, I don't know. I think I'd have her go against Athena for the Ring of Honor Women's Championship. Tell that story of, her being her student and whatnot. But no, we're going to go the Hikaru Shida route. Hikaru Shida is going to retain. She just got this championship, and we'll see who she faces next. But since they just gave this, and now it is a heel Hikaru Shida, I'm going to say she retains over Maya World. Roy, who you picking, Shida or Maya
World? Let's see here. So, out of all the matches, we have let me see, title match, title match, title match, title match, title match, title match. So pretty much all but 2 matches are title matches. We're going to have some sort of title changes. I already think Andrade's going to win. The tag titles aren't changing. Depending on the placement of this match will depend on if Maya wins or not. I don't think Maya's going to win, but if it's placed towards the end of the show, maybe in the main event, then she might win it, just because that is a big moment for her. That would be a big way to end the pay-per-view. I don't think that's the route because of what you just said of,
Athena.
Well, you've got the Athena, but I'm with you. I would rather see Athena in Maya World, where Maya World is the one that
Beats her.
ends Athena's title reign. Um, I think just this week she passed Roman Reigns' title reign.
Yeah, she did.
So that's really cool. I'm glad that she did that. Uh, Maybe it is time to switch that up. With Sheeta, it can be one of two things, man. Like she's good. Sheeta is really good. So you can take the title off of her now and then build back up to her possibly getting the title back. But I might go with you on this one where Sheeta wins this one just because she just got it. So I'm with you on this one. I think Sheeta will probably win.
We'll continue with the women on this one. As for the AEW Women's World Championship, Tekla goes one-on-one with Willow Nightingale. Willow Nightingale won the gauntlet. Mercedes won the Owen Hart Women's Championship. And unfortunately, and I like Tekla, I think she has a great vibe and I like her heel characteristics. I like the fact that she is, doesn't care and she says what she wants. She has the great thing going with Stardom. I think Willow's going to win. And I like Willow Nightingale a lot. But I think the match that they really want it all in is her and Mercedes. So with that being said, I'm going to go with Willow Nightingale to win the Women's Championship. And we get Willow and Mercedes at All in London. Roy, your thoughts?
Yep. That's why I was counting championship matches and how many title changes I had already said or not, because it was going to be a toss-up if it was either going to be this was a title change or the Hikaru Shida and Maya World match was going to be the title change. They want Mercedes and Willow at All In. This is the route to get there. You took the title off of Willow because she was injured, and then you bring her back just the week after or the week of the new crowning of Hikaru Shida. So you literally didn't have somebody like the championship could have stayed on on Willow, honestly, because there was not much of a difference in time frame. There's conspiracy behind it where people are like, oh, maybe she wasn't injured, they just needed to figure out how to get the title off of her without losing, that way she could get the main title, that way it could be her and Mercedes. Either way, I'm with you on this one. Willow is going to beat Tekla, and then it's going to be her and Mercedes at All In, just because that is, if you want to go storyline, that is the bigger match than Tekla and Monet.
Yeah, but you want something different, but Mercedes and Willow have that history, so it does make sense. Storyline progression. Speaking of progression, the Painmaker, Chris Jericho, goes one-on-one with Tommaso Ciampa in a no-holds-barred match. Okay, so Tommaso Ciampa just randomly out of nowhere attacks Chris Jericho during one of his matches, and then he reads the list like he's Dean Malenko. Then we get the match at Beach Break, and Tommaso Ciampa wins. Then he's the Psycho Killer, as you know, so then he's got the power drill in his hand. And then he's wrestling on Collision, and the Big Show's on commentary, so he tells Paul White, because, Jericho used to be a thing, about what he's going to do to Chris Jericho in the no-holds-barred match. And Chris Jericho's like, hey, man, I think it's time to return the Painmaker style that I have here. You don't know what you're getting into here, Tommaso Ciampa. So since Tommaso Ciampa won at Beach Break, my pick here is the Painmaker, Chris Jericho, over Tommaso Ciampa. It's no holds barred. It's no holds barred to sing the theme to the movie from 1989. Chris Jericho wins. Roy?
Yeah. I think having Jericho doing his thing, a lot of people really wanted Ciampa to make a name for himself, and I think he has in AEW. And a match like Ciampa and Jericho, especially in No Holds Barred, it really levels the odds for the two wrestling promotions, and it almost makes it where they're on a level playing field. And when you do that, you kind of can see that AEW is, the best wrestling. So I think for me, this match is probably going to be one of the best experiences that I've ever had, because you're going to have, the Painmaker Jericho versus Ciampa, who has always been the idyllic heel. So it's going to be good. I think Jericho doesn't lose anything by losing this, but then again, the Painmaker gimmick, I don't think he's ever lost as the Painmaker. I would rather see Ciampa win. You know what? Because of that, I'm going to say Ciampa wins it.
See, you're going with your gut, and I'd rather have Ciampa win it too. But
Yeah,
they're having Jericho come back as the Painmaker. So again, trying to make some logic into it, but I'm not really enthused on this match. I'm really not. But hey, Psycho Killer.
but you know what? I think that it's going to be a show that Tony Khan will be most proud of. So
I think so too.
Yeah.
So with that being said, we will go into our main event. Kenny Omega versus Kevin Knight for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. I think it's too soon for Kevin Knight, and I'll explain why. So he wins the TNT title. He's been wanting that shot when MJF was the champion. So he's going to take it here now. But here's the thing. I saw this story before. When Kyle Fletcher was the TNT champion, and he went against Adam Page, and Adam Page was telling him, you don't need the Don Callis family. I want to see you be you, which is pretty much what Kenny Omega said to Kevin Knight. But the thing is, too, it's just a build within a week's time, and they're in Canada, so it's a stopgap, and I think Kevin Knight can definitely do a lot more in the future with this. It's too soon. It's going to be a good match. But in my honest and humble opinion, Kenny Omega is going to retain, and that's going to lead to Omega and Ospreay going into an all-in. Roy, Kenny Omega, or Kevin Knight?
I mean, Omega, because why would you bounce the title off of MJF to put on Omega to face Ospreay just for him to lose the title to the guy that has the TNT title before you get to All In? Like, this is honestly one of the dumbest matches announced.
Yes.
All of these matches. Now I know it sounds like I'm being extremely negative about AEW. I know it comes off that way, and I apologize for that. But the reason is, a lot of these matches, there's no reason for the matches.
It's just matches.
There's no logic. It's just matches to have matches. If that's what you're into, then cool. Yes, this is awesome. There's going to be, all of these matches are going to be really good. All right. I've gone on record by saying AEW has really good wrestlers that put on really good matches. They are not a storytelling company. AEW is a wrestling promotion that sometimes has stories. WWE is a storytelling promotion that sometimes has wrestling. There is a difference between the two. I personally like storytelling in my wrestling. As far as the matches, I love watching a good match, but I don't want to sit there and watch 8 20-minute, 30-minute matches where they all do the same thing in every single match. You're going to have a kick out at 1. You're going to have the fire up spot. You're going to have multiple flips to the outside. You're going to have multiple false finishes. You're going to have multiple finishing maneuver attempts that end in a 2 count. It's going to happen in every single one of these matches. The difference being it's all the matches, whereas other companies will do 1 or 2 matches that has that happen. Not every match has to have 30 false finishes. Not every match has to have somebody kick out at 1 to do the hope spot. You don't need that all the time. And that's what we're going to get at Redemption. There's nothing against it. If that's the kind of wrestling that you're into, by all means, I hope you enjoy the pay-per-view because it will be good wrestling. But as far as I'm considered, or as far as I consider it, it's something I can catch the highlights for, because I want to know the finishing sequence for these matches, because the match itself is just going to be very long, and there's going to be a lot of moves that you don't need to have in there. And then we're going to have Kenny Omega win. After Omega wins, I'll go ahead and say this. This will be the biggest prediction of the whole thing. After Kenny wins, they're probably going to have the Death Riders come out there and beat down Kenny. Then we're going to have the Young Bucks and Cope and Christian come out there to make the save, where it's going to end. The show's going to end with Kenny standing in between Cope and Christian and the Young Bucks. And then on the other side, it's going to be the 5 Death Riders. And the final thing that we see is going to be the 5 of them staring off against the 5 of them. That's how we're going to end Redemption.
That is actually a very good way for a visual to go off the air. So I will laugh if that does happen. But to what Roy said, it's not uncommon. And like Roy mentioned, we don't hate AEW. It's just we know the concept of how Tony likes to book. He likes to treat these shows like it's a New Japan event where everything has to be 30 minutes or plus long. And that's what we're getting. And it's a great solid night of action. But I think at the end of the day, too, I know we seem very unenthusiastic, but it's just like, okay, here we are. But
we felt the same. In all fairness, we felt the same going into Night of Champions and Saturday Night's main event, because we know that they're going to be good matches. It's so predictable. And half the time there's nothing exciting leading up to it. It's just, here's the match just to have the match. Like, I want the story to go into that match.
Well, we'll see where the story goes next week, Roy, because next week we will be doing more predictions of SummerSlam, 2-night event. Hopefully we get right decisions and we get right winners and we get right losers and we see the story and trajectory arc. But there's a lot of wrestling to cover. We hope you enjoyed the show, as we always love doing each and every one of these for each and every one of you. Roy, where can we follow us on the social medias? You do a great job with that, as well as thumbnails. Promote it, man.
Appreciate it. We're on Twitter, we're on YouTube, we're on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can find us at Takedown Pod, the Takedown Podcast, on any of those platforms. We are also a part of the WFJA FM radio brand. Don't know which way. Right there.
Yep, there it is, buddy.
Classic Hits. We have a website there, wfjafm.com/podcasts. We're on that platform as well, so you can listen to us there. Plus, while you're there, after you get done listening to us, you can click on one of the little listen live buttons and listen to some nice hits from the 80s, man. It's I don't know if you've tuned in to the station just on a random time, but you can always hear banger songs. especially stuff that we grew up listening to. So you can check us out there. And like I said, everywhere else, it's either Takedown Pod or the Takedown Podcast. Takedown, 2 words.
Definitely go and listen to the streams because the hits that they got, if you're an 80s kid or a 90s kid like yours truly and grew up in the 90s, you're going to hear some bangers. And they are great bangers that still hold the test of time. And much like Roy mentioned, go to wfj.com/podcast to hear the Takedown Podcast and so much more. We got a lot of stuff coming. If you want to check out the Takedown Pod, subscribe to the YouTube channel and subscribe to S&M Network shows to also hear the Takedown Pod. We are also on Spotify, so all the links will be in our link tree down below. If you want to check out yours truly, it's SM Show 1 or MCL92 on the Twitter machine, Larkin_92, MLarkinMB on Instagram, StephenMikeShow.com, LFCfights.com, also for your audio and video needs, and subscribe to the YouTube like I mentioned previously. So with that being said, we are on the road to SummerSlam, and we will see y'all next week for some predictions and more talk of the weekend wrestling. For Roy Costin, my name is Mike Larkin. We'll see you next time, and I think I need some redemption for the predictions that we just said. We need more redeeming. Ain't no more scheming.